Ava stood in front of the big chocolate cake, her favorite one, the same kind her mother used to make when she was little. The house was full of laughter and chatter. Friends, family, and neighbors filled every corner of the Miller home. Balloons hung from the ceiling, and a golden banner read, "Happy 27th birthday, Ava." She smiled shyly as everyone began to sing. Her heart warmed with gratitude. For once, she felt seen. Maybe this year, things would be different. Maybe her father would finally look at her with the same pride he always showed for Lydia. As the last note of the birthday song faded, Ava leaned forward to blow out the candles. But just before she could, a hand reached over her shoulder. Lydia, her younger sister with her perfect hair and bold smile, pushed in front of her and snatched the cake knife. "Don't just stand there, Ava. Let's cut the cake already," she laughed loudly, posing for the guests. Before Ava could react, Lydia sliced into the cake, her cake, and served herself the first piece. Guests looked at one another awkwardly. A few chuckled, unsure what to do. The laughter that once filled the room turned uneasy. Ava froze. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the table. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Lydia turned to her with a teasing grin. "Oh, come on, don't look so serious. It's just cake," she said, brushing off the tension as if nothing had happened. Ava forced a small smile, pretending it didn't matter. But inside she felt her stomach twist. This was supposed to be her moment. Just one day where she wasn't the shadow of her sister. Her father, Thomas Miller, stood at the back of the room, his face calm, almost blank. He didn't say a word. He didn't stop Lydia. He didn't even look at Ava. He just sipped his drink, watching quietly. That silence hurt more than Lydia's mockery. Ava's mother tried to smooth things over. "All right, girls, it's just a bit of fun," she said gently, but even she sounded uncertain. Lydia giggled again, feeding a bite of cake to one of her friends. "See? Delicious. You should thank me for cutting it, Ava." The guests began talking again, pretending nothing had happened. But the air was heavy, thick with something unsaid. Ava stood there, her smile trembling, wishing she could disappear. She whispered, "Thank you, everyone," though her voice shook slightly. As the party went on, Lydia shone in every conversation, laughing loudly, soaking in the attention. Ava stayed quiet, cleaning up plates, offering smiles she didn't feel. No one noticed the tears she blinked away. No one noticed her father's distant stare. And no one knew that this would be the last birthday party Thomas Miller would ever attend. What he would leave behind, the secrets, the will, and the truth, would soon destroy everything they thought they knew about being a family. Ava had always been the quiet one in the family, the one who worked hard, stayed out of trouble, and never demanded attention. Since she finished school, she had been helping her father run his small company, staying late to handle paperwork and keep things organized. While other people her age were traveling or posting pictures of parties, Ava was making sure her father's business survived. Lydia, on the other hand, lived life like a movie. She loved parties, traveled often, and always seemed to have people around her. Everyone called her the fun one. Even their father, Thomas Miller, would laugh at her jokes and shake his head proudly when she entered a room. "Lydia just knows how to make people happy," he often said. Ava would smile quietly when he said that, pretending it didn't hurt. She never said anything back. She only nodded and continued working. Her mother, Grace, always tried to comfort her. "You girls will understand each other one day," she would say softly. Sisters fight, but they always come back to love. But as the years passed, Ava began to doubt that. Lydia seemed to shine brighter in everyone's eyes, no matter what Ava did. When Thomas's company started struggling, Ava was the one who took on extra shifts. She handled clients, paid bills, and even sold her car once to help with expenses. Lydia didn't know, or maybe she didn't care. She was busy with vacations and social events, rarely calling home except when she needed money. Still, Ava loved her sister. She remembered their childhood, how they used to share a bed when there was a thunderstorm, how Lydia used to cry until Ava held her hand. But that bond had faded as they grew older, replaced by jealousy and silence. Then Thomas fell ill. It started with small signs, coughing, tiredness, forgetfulness. Soon he couldn't go to work at all. The company nearly collapsed, but Ava stepped in fully. She managed everything, the employees, the bills, the meetings, all while taking care of her father at home. She cooked for him, helped him walk, and sat beside him through long nights when the pain kept him awake. Sometimes he would take her hand and whisper, "You've always been strong, Ava. I don't say it enough, but I see everything you do." Those moments made her eyes fill with tears. It was the kind of love she had wanted her whole life. But just when things seemed peaceful, Lydia returned. She came back with her usual charm, loud laughter, bright dresses, and expensive perfume. Suddenly, she was by her father's bedside, holding his hand, taking pictures, and posting them online with captions like "Family is everything." Ava watched quietly, her heart heavy. She knew Lydia's visits were not about care. They were about image. But Thomas was too weak to see that. His eyes softened every time Lydia entered the room. "She's finally grown up," he said one day, smiling faintly. Ava nodded, though she knew better. She had seen this pattern before. Lydia only showed up when something could be gained. Grace, their mother, tried to keep peace between them, but even she looked tired. "Don't fight with your sister," she told Ava. "Your father needs peace right now." So Ava stayed silent. She hid her pain behind polite smiles, helping where she could and letting Lydia take the attention. But deep down, something inside her was breaking. She had spent her life doing everything right, yet somehow, she was always invisible next to her sister. And now, with her father's health fading, the old wounds between them were opening again. No one said it aloud, but everyone could feel it. Jealousy, guilt, and years of unspoken hurt hiding behind fragile smiles and forced kindness. The Miller family looked peaceful on the outside. But under that quiet surface, their world was slowly beginning to crack. The days after Ava's birthday felt quiet and strange. The laughter and noise of the party were gone, replaced by an uncomfortable silence that filled the Miller home. Ava tried to stay busy, helping her mother care for her father, who had grown weaker. His illness had taken a sudden turn, and the doctors said he needed rest. Ava spent every morning by his side, reading to him, feeding him, and holding his hand when he coughed. Sometimes he would look at her and smile faintly. "You've always been the one who stayed," he whispered one night, his voice soft and tired. She didn't know those would be his last words to her. A few days later, Thomas Miller passed away quietly in his sleep. The house filled with people again, but this time there was no laughter, only tears and whispers. Lydia cried loudly in front of everyone, hugging guests and talking about how close she was to her father. Ava stayed near her mother, silent and numb. The funeral came and went. Ava barely remembered any of it. The flowers, the prayers, the kind words people said about her father. What she did remember was the tension in the air, the way some guests whispered about the will. Everyone assumed Lydia would get everything. She was the favorite, the golden daughter. A week later, the family gathered in Uncle Raymond's office for the reading of the will. The room was small and quiet, filled with the ticking sound of a wall clock. Ava sat beside her mother, hands clasped tightly in her lap. Lydia sat across from them, her face calm but proud, as if she already knew what was coming. Uncle Raymond cleared his throat and began to read. "This is the last will and testament of Thomas Miller," he said in a steady voice. "To my beloved wife, Grace Miller, I leave my love and gratitude for standing by me through every storm." Grace's eyes filled with tears. Ava reached over to hold her hand. Uncle Raymond continued. "To my eldest daughter, Ava Miller." He paused slightly, looking at her. "I leave the family home, my company shares, and all my savings." The room went still. Ava's breath caught in her throat. Then Uncle Raymond spoke again. "To my younger daughter, Lydia Miller, I leave a trust of $10,000. For a moment no one moved. The silence was heavy and cold. Then Lydia's eyes widened. "What?" she whispered. Uncle Raymond repeated the line softly, but Lydia jumped to her feet. "No. That's wrong. You would never do that to me," she shouted. Her voice echoed through the small office. Her mother gasped, "Lydia, please." But Lydia kept yelling. "This is a mistake. Ava must have done something. She was with him every day. She probably made him change it." Ava sat frozen, her heart pounding. She shook her head weakly. "Lydia, I didn't. Don't lie to me." Lydia screamed, tears streaming down her face. "You've always been jealous. You made him think I didn't care about him." Uncle Raymond stood up quickly. "Enough, Lydia. Your father made this decision himself. He signed every page in front of witnesses." Lydia stared at him, her chest rising and falling fast. No, he couldn't have." she whispered, her voice breaking. Then she turned to Ava, her expression full of hate. You took everything from me. Ava looked down, unable to speak. Her father's words echoed in her mind. You were always the one who stayed. Lydia stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind her. The sound echoed through the hallway like a warning. Ava sat still for a long time, her hands shaking. Part of her wanted to feel grateful. Her father had finally seen her worth, but all she felt was guilt and fear. Outside, the sky had turned dark, and rain began to fall. That moment marked the beginning of everything that would follow: anger, betrayal, and a battle that would tear the Miller family apart forever. After the will was read, nothing felt normal again. The Miller home turned cold and quiet. Ava tried to keep things calm, but Lydia's anger kept growing day by day. She refused to accept what their father had left behind. It started with phone calls and messages. Lydia would call Ava in the middle of the night, shouting and crying. You tricked him, she screamed once. You were always jealous of me. You made him change everything before he died. Ava tried to reason with her. Lydia, that's not true. Dad made his own choice. I didn't touch anything. But Lydia wouldn't listen. Her pain had turned into rage. Soon, she began telling people that Ava had forged the will. She called family friends, business partners, and even posted things online. Photos of Ava with her father appeared on social media with cruel captions like, "She took advantage of a sick man. The greedy daughter who stole everything." At first, Ava ignored it. She told herself people would see the truth, but the lies spread fast. Within days, neighbors began avoiding her. Some of her father's old friends stopped returning her calls. Even at work, her coworkers whispered behind her back. One day, her boss quietly told her, maybe take some time off until things settle down. Ava went home that night and sat on the floor of her bedroom, feeling her world fall apart. She had worked so hard to protect her father's name, and now people believed she was a thief. Her mother, Grace, was caught in the middle. She loved both daughters and didn't know what to do. She cried often, saying, "Why can't you two stop fighting? Your father would be so ashamed." But Lydia didn't stop. She came to the house one evening, shouting from the gate, "You think you can live here alone? This house belongs to both of us." Ava came outside, shaking. "Lydia, please don't do this. I don't want to fight." But Lydia pushed past her, storming into the house. She threw a vase on the floor, breaking it. "You're not better than me. Everyone used to love me, and you ruined that." Ava tried to calm her down, but Lydia was too angry. She went to their father's study and started pulling books off the shelf, scattering papers everywhere. "Stop it," Ava shouted, grabbing her arm. Lydia turned on her, eyes full of hate. "You don't deserve any of this. You were nothing until he died." For a moment, Ava thought Lydia might actually hit her. Then suddenly Lydia broke down, crying and shaking. She sank to the floor, whispering, he promised me the company." Ava froze. "Promised you?" But Lydia didn't explain. She just stood up and ran out of the house, slamming the door behind her. After that night, Ava called Uncle Raymond, desperate for help. He listened quietly and then said, "Ava, you need to protect yourself. File a restraining order before things get worse." But Ava shook her head. "She's my sister. She's just hurt. I can't do that to her." Uncle Raymond sighed. "You're too kind, Ava. Sometimes kindness can destroy you." The next few weeks were miserable. Lydia kept posting online, twisting every memory into something ugly. Reporters began calling, asking for comments about the family inheritance scandal. Headlines appeared on gossip pages. "Elder daughter steals dying man's fortune." Grace stopped going to church because people whispered behind her back. She grew weaker every day, her eyes full of sadness. "I've lost both my daughters," she said one morning, her voice shaking. Ava tried to comfort her, but she herself was falling apart. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think. Every time she looked at her father's old photo, she felt guilt and anger at the same time. Then one night, she woke up to a noise downstairs. She went to check and found the living room in chaos. Lydia had broken in again. The photo frames were smashed, the curtains torn. Lydia stood there in the middle of the mess, her eyes wild. "I just want what's mine," she said, her voice trembling. "There's nothing to take, Lydia," Ava whispered, tears in her eyes. "Please stop. You're only hurting yourself." But Lydia only glared at her. You don't understand. You took everything from me. My father, my name, my life. Then she ran out into the night before Ava could stop her. Ava fell to her knees, crying. She wanted to believe Lydia could still change, that they could find peace someday. But deep inside, she knew something had broken between them, something that might never heal again. Their father's death had not just taken him away. It had taken their love, their trust, and their bond as sisters. And from that night on, Ava knew. This was no longer a misunderstanding. It was war. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet around the grave. Ava stood quietly, holding a small bouquet of white lilies, her father's favorite. It had been months since his death, yet peace still felt far away. The scandal, the fights, and the hatred had left scars that refused to fade. She knelt to place the flowers, whispering, I hope you're proud of me, Dad. I'm trying to make things right. Then she heard footsteps. Lydia's voice came from behind her. Still pretending to be the good daughter? Ava froze and slowly turned around. Lydia stood there in a black coat, her hair messy, her eyes red. She looked tired, almost broken, but her anger was still alive. I didn't come here to fight, Ava said quietly. I just wanted to visit Dad. Lydia laughed bitterly. Of course you did. Saint Ava, the perfect daughter. The one who got everything. Ava took a slow breath. It wasn't about getting everything, Lydia. It was about what Dad thought was right. Right. Lydia's voice rose. You think it was right to take away what was mine? She stepped closer, her voice shaking. He promised me, Ava. He promised me the company. Ava frowned. Promised you? When? What are you talking about? Lydia hesitated. For a second, she seemed to realize she had said too much. But the anger was too strong. She shouted, her voice echoing through the empty graveyard. He said he'd give it to me if I kept quiet about what I saw that night. The words hung in the air like thunder. Ava blinked. What night? Lydia froze, breathing hard. Her eyes darted away. Forget it, she muttered, turning to leave. Ava grabbed her arm. No. Tell me the truth, Lydia. What did you see? Lydia's face twisted with pain. You want the truth? Fine. Her voice broke as she continued. Years ago, when we were still living in the old house, I followed Dad one night. I thought he was meeting someone from work. But he wasn't. He was with another woman. Ava's mouth fell open. What? He was cheating on Mom, Lydia whispered, tears running down her face. He saw me watching. He begged me not to tell her. The next day he bought me a car, a new phone, and said he'd always take care of me. That's when it started. All the gifts, all the praise. Ava felt her heart sink. All those years she had believed Lydia was the favorite because of her charm, her laughter, her bright personality. But it wasn't love. It was guilt. Lydia's voice shook as she went on. He didn't love me more, Ava. He was just trying to buy my silence. I thought it meant I was special. But I was just his mistake. Ava felt tears fill her eyes. Lydia, why didn't you tell me? Lydia looked at her bitterly. Because you wouldn't have believed me. You were always his little helper, always defending him. I was the wild one, remember? She wiped her tears roughly. And then when he got sick, he changed. He stopped calling me. He stopped giving me things. I think he felt guilty again. So he gave it all to you. To make peace with himself before he died. Ava stepped closer. So that's why you hate me. Lydia nodded weakly. You got the love he wanted to give me but couldn't. And I got his lies. The truth hit Ava like a storm. All the jealousy, all the anger she'd felt toward her sister. It had been built on a misunderstanding. Lydia had never been the lucky one. She had been carrying a secret too heavy for her to hold. Ava's tears fell freely now. He shouldn't have done that to you. To either of us. Lydia sank to the ground near the grave, sobbing. I just wanted him to choose me for once, for something real. Ava knelt beside her, unsure of what to say. She reached out and gently touched Lydia's shoulder. For a moment, Lydia didn't move. Then she leaned into her sister's arms, crying harder. The two sisters stayed like that for a long time, the wind moving softly through the trees. When Lydia finally spoke, her voice was small. I ruined everything, didn't I? Ava shook her head. No. We both got hurt. We both lost him, just in different ways. They sat there in silence, the truth finally between them. For the first time in years, Ava didn't feel anger. only sadness. And a strange kind of relief. She finally understood the story behind her father's favoritism and her sister's pain. Lydia had been envied her whole life for a love that was never real. And Ava realized she'd been chasing the approval of a man who had carried his own guilt to the grave. It was the most painful truth they'd ever faced, but it was also the one that could finally set them free. After the painful truth came out at the graveyard, Ava finally understood everything. The anger, the jealousy, the broken trust. It all made sense now. For the first time, she didn't feel hatred toward Lydia. She only felt tired and sad for both of them. The following weeks were quiet. Lydia disappeared from town, leaving no message behind. Ava focused on fixing the damage left behind. The rumors, the gossip, and the tension that had spread through their family name. People still whispered when she passed by, but Ava didn't try to defend herself anymore. She knew that truth didn't need shouting. It just needed time. Uncle Raymond helped her handle the legal matters. He also spoke to the local press, telling them the truth about the will and the misunderstanding between the sisters. Slowly, people began to see things differently. The same newspapers that had once called Ava the greedy daughter now printed new headlines. Elder daughter proves loyalty, a father's final redemption. Ava didn't feel proud or victorious. She just felt peaceful knowing her father's name was no longer buried under lies. One day, Uncle Raymond said gently, "You could still press charges against Lydia for breaking into your home, you know. You'd have every right." Ava thought for a moment, then shook her head. "No, that won't fix anything. I just want to move on." She decided to do something different, something that would bring meaning to all the pain. She sold part of her inheritance and used the money to start a small charity foundation in her father's name. It helped struggling families and students in need. She named it the Thomas Miller Hope Fund. When the opening ceremony was held, only a few people came, but that didn't matter. Ava looked at the small sign with her father's name on it and felt proud for the first time. Not because she had inherited something, but because she had built something that mattered. Months passed. Ava began to rebuild her life. She started working again, slowly earning people's trust back. Her mother's health improved, and they grew closer than ever. The house felt warm again, peaceful, not silent. Then one morning, a letter arrived in the mail. The handwriting was familiar. Ava's hands trembled slightly as she opened it. It was from Lydia. The letter was short but full of emotion. "Ava, you didn't deserve what I did to you. I was angry at the world, at Dad, at myself, at everything. I thought if I took things from you, I'd feel better. But I only ended up losing myself. You were never my enemy. I just didn't know how to stop being jealous. I was tired of being the second choice, even when I wasn't. I'm leaving town for a while. I need to start over somewhere new. I hope one day you'll forgive me. Lydia." Ava sat by the window for a long time after reading it. The tears came slowly, but they weren't tears of pain anymore. They were soft, warm tears of release. She folded the letter carefully and placed it inside her father's old photo album, right next to a picture of her and Lydia as children. Two smiling girls who had once loved each other deeply. That night, Ava lit a candle by the window. She looked at the soft flame and whispered, "I forgive you, Lydia. I forgive Dad too. And maybe, I forgive myself." It was a quiet moment, but it felt powerful. In the months that followed, Ava grew stronger. She started painting again, something she had given up years ago. She laughed more, spent time with her mother, and learned to enjoy small things like morning coffee and evening walks. For the first time, she didn't live for anyone's approval. Not her father's, not the world's. She was finally living for herself. And though her sister was far away, Ava kept her in her prayers, hoping one day Lydia would find her own peace too. The pain hadn't vanished. It had simply turned into wisdom. And from that wisdom, Ava built a new life, one filled with kindness, strength, and quiet dignity. The storm that had once torn her family apart had finally passed. And in its place, Ava found something far more powerful than revenge. She found healing. On her next birthday, Ava woke up early. The house was quiet. No guests, no noise, no busy footsteps. It was peaceful, just the way she wanted it to be. She baked a small chocolate cake, the same kind her father loved. She placed a single candle on top and lit it gently. The soft glow filled the room with warmth. Ava sat down at the table and smiled softly. She cut the cake carefully and set aside 2 slices. One was for her father, to remember him and the good times they shared. The other was for Lydia, the sister she had lost but still hoped to find someday. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, maybe forgiveness isn't about who is right or wrong. Her voice grew stronger. Maybe it's just about finally letting go. Ava closed her eyes and made a quiet wish. Not for revenge or regret, but for peace. She blew out the candle and felt a calm settle inside her heart. The house stayed quiet, but Ava felt alive. She knew the road ahead might still have challenges, but she was ready. Ready to live her life free from pain and full of hope. The story of her family, full of pain, secrets, and tears, was over. And in its place was a new beginning. Ava smiled again, this time with real happiness. The candle's light faded, but her strength burned bright. Hey friends, thanks a lot for sticking around till the end. Don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more. See you next time.